Jealousy is never satisfied with anything short of an omniscience that would detect the subtlest fold of the heart. George Eliot. Have you ever felt the sting of jealousy or envy tugging at your heart when you see someone achieving what you've only dreamed of? It's like the shadow that lurks in the back of your mind, isn't it? But here's a thought. What if we could turn that shadow into fuel? What if those uncomfortable feelings could actually catapult us towards our life goals? Thank you for joining us today for episode 12 as we dive deep into the world of shadow emotions, specifically jealousy and envy. But before we dive into our main topic, allow us to introduce ourselves.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Jackie of Akashic Energy Healing.
And I'm Elizabeth Maria of Elizabeth Maria Unlimited. And together, we are the hosts of Sex, Drugs, and Spirituality, where we navigate the power of personal growth and self-discovery through exploration and acceptance of our shadow selves. Okay, guys, I guess a little bit of comic relief there, but that's okay. Oh, so wonderful to join us today as we dive into this discussion. This is probably going to be the first of, many episodes really unveiling different emotions that we, as humans universally feel and, have to navigate through. So first off, we want to discuss what are shadow traits in general. So the shadow side of our personality, it consists of repressed and or negative human emotions and impulses like rage, envy, greed, selfishness, desire, and the striving for power. Everything we deny in ourselves. It's whatever we perceive as inferior, evil, or just unacceptable in some way. This all can become a part of your shadow. So the term was originally coined by psychologist Carl Jung and is one of the human archetypes discussed in Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey. The shadow is formed out of this need to adapt to cultural norms. And so it's what you feel as an unacceptable emotion in you. And so you push it down, repress it, and it becomes a shadow. Several different ways to pinpoint shadow traits in your life. And so you can consider, where are you holding back in life? Where does your life feel out of balance? Often these points to often like these points in life will reveal different shadow traits in you. You can also look around and see what types of experiences you are attracting. This is law of attraction, because we attract who we are, not what it is we want. And I do want to say that we will kind of go in more into a discussion of these ways to pinpoint shadow traits as we move forward. We can also take a look at what we dislike or hate in others. And this was a really big one for me to begin pinpointing some of these traits that no longer serve. This idea is a paradox, but what we see in others, we have in ourselves. And this is the idea of we are mirrors. Everything that we think on the inside is mirrored on the outside. Another way that we can begin to pinpoint shadow traits is repeating negative thoughts in our heads. When we obsess on certain situations or experiences, these obsessions can help us pinpoint these traits. So we can journal about negative thoughts. This can help kind of take the power away from the negative thought if we can isolate it and basically begin, and we've talked about this, beginning to look at thoughts as entities unto themselves, right? So by journaling, this can help take the power from the thought, and it can also help us begin to see where we're out of balance, mind, body, spirit. Anything that you fear or feel guilty or shameful about can also show you places where negative shadow emotions dwell. Avoidance and denial keeps you stuck in the pattern. So it's important to begin to take an eagle-eyed view and really look at these areas in your life. So fear, guilt, and shame usually mean that there's something else going on under the surface. You can also look at your habits, your triggers, feelings, and overall life patterns. These loops, or in the negative, these hell loops, can show unresolved patterns from your past that are attached to these shadow traits that I guess more so manifest as your shadow traits. And these different life patterns, or like when triggers come up, or when you're looking at the types of habits that you have in your life, these patterns keep on coming up because they need to be healed and integrated. And Jackie, do you want to, kind of talk about any of that? Did any of that stick out for you? Or
I really enjoy how you broke it down. I know the term shadow is becoming more popular these days, but a lot of people still needed that, really detailed explanation that you just provided us as to what they are, how we can tell that we're working through them, and truthfully, the triggers that come up, really pointing us in the direction of anything that really needs to continue to be healed, stuff that still needs to be worked on. And I really love the description that you gave there. So I think I couldn't add anything additionally to what you wrote in there. So that was really spot on in my opinion.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, and definitely, and at the beginning we talk about how we can, by pinpointing these shadows, we can begin to transmute this energy, which we're going to talk about as we move forward, right? So, we don't want you all to look at shadow traits overall as a negative, because it is a way that we can see. It's almost like a guidepost, if you will, right? A marker to show where it is that you're out of balance and we need those markers, right? I know Abraham Hicks talks a lot about like the the bumps on the side of the road or whatever. She's like, they're not bad, they're just showing us that we're off balance. So
I agree. And I mean, there is no pathway to healing without facing your shadow. It is an intricate part in the healing journey, and it can't be overlooked. So we can continue to bury it and bury it and bury it, but then it will come out in these negative ways, such as, traumas and triggers and situations that continue to throw us off balance. So if we keep turning a blind eye to it, I'm just thinking of what you said there, driving on the road and your car starts to shake and you're all like, oh, you're like have that mini heart attack because you're almost like going right off the road. So, and that can be very much the same way a trigger can come on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so, kind of thinking about, because really what a trigger is, it's like a negative emotion, it's us responding to a negative emotion that is coming up, right? And so let's talk a little bit about what emotion is. Emotion, if you break the word down, emotion, energy in motion. So emotions are conscious mental reactions. Any type of conscious mental reaction, such as anger or fear, that it's subjectively experienced. And so again, like, we all experience things from our perspective, right? So what could trigger one person into, an emotional reaction may not even affect someone else, right? So it's subjective. And so these strong feelings are usually directed toward a specific object and are typically accompanied by psychological and behavioral changes in the body. And this is straight out of Merriam-Webster. And so our emotions are literally energy in motion. When we find ways to block the energy from moving through our body, we can end up storing emotions physiologically in our cells. And so, some ways that we learn to bypass these emotions include disassociating, addiction, perfectionism, judging ourselves or others, and being, critical of ourselves or others, right? And so eventually these unprocessed emotions can begin to show up as physical symptoms and ailments in the body if we don't allow the energy in motion to, do what it's supposed to do, which is flow through the body, not get stuck in the cellular makeup of the body, right? So that's pretty much my understanding on the energy of emotions. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I really appreciate the understanding. And when you think of energy, exactly, like, it is never going to just disintegrate. Like, it's always going to transform into something else. And learning and being able to understand how you're feeling is such a powerful tool. And so many of us, allow emotions to take over us, and we don't even question why, a situation might happen and you feel angry, and you can't even pinpoint what about it makes you angry. You just know that feeling of anger, and you allow that feeling of anger to kind of manifest in certain ways in your experience. And we kind of take our accountability out of it and just allow ourselves to feel those feelings without, taking control of it. And then that's why I think this topic is really good today, because we can really learn that these energies and these emotions and these are coming up for a reason. They're showing us something. And if we can learn to reshape and transmute, and we talk about being this ultimate alchemist, and we can change all of these to be really, really positive for us. And I think that's what we want to focus on as we move further through the discussion, is how we can start to bring these back into an alignment with us and show that even these seemingly lower or denser energies really have the ability to expand us even further on our path.
Excellent. Yes, I agree 100%. And while you were talking, Jackie, I started thinking again about ways that we can bypass emotions, and how I know in my story, disassociation and addiction, actually all of them have been I mean, every way to not feel, I have, navigated through that, to the point that I was in a development program, and, my mentor asked me at one point, she was like, Elizabeth, what do you think is going to happen if you feel, and at the time I was so disassociated from my feelings. I just literally pictured myself like having a feeling and then just falling over and going into like freaking seizures or something, and having to be like drug away. fucking, you know, straight jacket or something. What's wrong with her? She's feeling emotion. You know.
Well, and that's for me, especially when it's very powerful emotions, it makes me feel like I'm not in control. And that is a big trigger for me in my journey, that anytime I feel out of control, it takes me off balance. It takes me off my center. I feel like, you know, this fear coming over me. And so with the stray jacket thing is funny because it kind of feel like, you know, like I'm just like in this whirlwind and I don't know what to do. And I'm anxious and I can't sit still. And it's, you know, something else is controlling. I can't control this emotion. And it really takes me off center. So I feel that on a deep level, that, you know, that control was the place that's my comfort zone, feeling like I'm in control. So anything outside of that is anxiety ridden.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I cannot stress, and I haven't mentioned my bestie Peter Levine for a couple episodes, but I'm gonna throw this in, that he discusses the idea of oscillation when really beginning to process some of these denser emotions that are coming up, and these feelings and these reactions, because it can, like Jackie said, overwhelm the senses to the point where we do feel out of control. So, for those of you listening, that this is, you're just beginning to kind of navigate through an understanding of your own shadow traits, always, be gentle. Oscillation is like, or like a titrated approach. You just want to do a little bit at a time. Don't fully inundate yourself in this type of work, because it can be overwhelming and it can bring up a lot of unhealed stuff, so just go slow, be gentle with yourself. I always think of, again, the same mentor. She was like, think about the Sistine Chapel and think about how long it would take to actually polish and clean each section of that painting so it is restored to its former glory, right? So think of yourself as that Sistine Chapel that is, slowly getting polished, and so the light can shine through. I really loved that metaphor.
I like that. And I honestly think that it is like I think we discussed it last week, but intention will really help to keep you from kind of jumping over the fullest edge into all of the, challenges. Like you said, piece by piece, you will polish yourself up into wholeness again. But exactly, for myself, trying to put on too much at one time actually will have the adverse effect and throw me into kind of a downward spiral, because it's just too much at one time. And I can't manage all of that. So for me, the step by step, the really piecemealing it out, one, I guess, shadow trait at a time, is the only thing that kept me from really probably stepping backwards a lot more before I move forward.
Absolutely. And I also did want to, I know we touched on it last week with, the vibration and the frequency of, exterior substances, but, there's also a vibration of emotions. You guys can, literally Google like emotional vibration chart, and you can find these charts. But this, for me, when I started really beginning to understand my own emotions, I was actually in therapy at the time, and my therapist had to give me a handout with all of the emotions named, what they were, because I had gone so long disassociated and, basically numb from my emotions, that I honestly didn't 100% know how to pinpoint what I was feeling. And so some type of list that you can really look at to help you pinpoint, okay, so for instance, on the vibration of emotional chart, right? And they give just a different vibrational kind of number scale. So for instance, on the lower, more dense side, we have like the vibration of 20 and 30, which is like shame and guilt. The vibration at 50 is kind of like apathy, lack of interest, very depressed, right? So you can think of these as like heavy, low, and and I don't mean in a hierarchical sense low, because all emotions again are important gauges of where we're at, but just dense and heavy, right? And so what we're talking about today with envy and jealousy, this really vibrates at a frequency of about 120, 125. It's right below anger, right? So anger is actually a higher emotion, if you will, than jealousy or envy. And just like we discussed last week, most people, when in some type of, kind of symbiotic balance, will kind of vibrate at the neutral range, which is about 250, or, a little bit higher in the 400, 500 range, which is reason, hope, optimism, love, enthusiasm, happiness, right? And so, for that, just to kind of gauge where you're at, I definitely suggest that you all, and actually, I don't know if there's a way, Jackie, that we can attach like the vibration of emotions chart, or maybe, we could send it out to those of that are on our email list or something like that, just for an extra tool that people can use.
Yeah, I believe I can put it in actually on the slide on the Spotify. So we'll put that in there for you guys. And as now, I guess that you'll be able to see what we're looking at right now. And that's, I think, how a nice way that we're leading into the next part is about transmuting these energies. So if you are sitting at a place, say, of a 125 hertz frequency of jealousy, and you can understand how to transmute that into appreciation or gratitude, all of a sudden you're up closer to the 900 hertz frequency, and that is the energetic shift that we're looking to talk about today when we are looking to reshape the energies of envy and jealousy. So I guess I'll give a little bit of a breakdown as to an overview of the term of jealousy. And jealousy is a complex emotion that involves a real or perceived threat to an interpersonal relationship. An individual may resent a third person for taking away or appearing to take away affection from somebody that they love. This emotion is often accompanied by resentment, anger, hostility, inadequacy, bitterness. And everybody has experienced jealousy at some point in their life. But this emotion can become extremely unhealthy and negative and impact our relationships. We can range the intensity when it's severe. Jealousy can then lead to paranoia, abuse, and even physical violence. And if we're talking about relationships, I know that this is all too common. Jealousy would be the kind of igniter, and then leading to these other darker, denser energies where we can even start to move into physical violence, as we said. So there is a difference between jealousy and envy. So for envy, although people do consider envy and jealousy to be the same, they're very different. So envy is the painful feeling of wanting what somebody else has. This would be like attributes or possessions, financial status or status in general. And jealousy is the feeling of feeling threatened or protective, fearful of losing something or a situation to somebody else. I'd like to focus on solution-based options because we are looking to release these feelings of energies of jealousy and envy. They're not bad. Like we said, there is no bad emotions. And in the phenomenal book, The Secret Door to Success by Florence Scovel, I believe that is how you say the last name. You guys know I'm not the best with names. She discusses a treatment or an affirmation that can be used to dissipate the negative energy. she discusses the proverbial wall of Jericho, the biblical story. And I think we've all kind of had a little bit of information on that. But if we don't, but really we're talking about a wall that we build around ourselves that prevents us from achieving success. She credits resentment as the foundation of this wall. So, such as you're feeling like you're a failure and you resent that somebody else has success, this resentment is actually keeping you from achieving your own success. So, she gives this treatment as a way to help neutralize the jealous or envy energy that you possess. And it's practicing saying the statement anytime you're having the feelings of envy or jealousy coming up for you. So while feelings of jealousy or envious is viewed as negative, it's actually a universal experience. And we can flip the script, transmute the energy, and see how these feelings can start to serve us as opposed to dragging us down. Elizabeth, why don't you tell us the quote that she describes as to how to transmute this energy?
Great. So I love Florence Scovel Shinn. I love her work. So for those of you out there listening, definitely check her out. You can go to YouTube and just type her name in. But she wrote a lot of metaphysical books about mind mastery. She was, I believe, operating in like the turn of the last century, so the early 1900s. But a treatment that she would actually prescribe treatments, or what we refer to now as like affirmations. And so one that she had for jealousy and envy is to say, what God has done for others, he now does for me and more. Or if you feel some kind of way about saying God, you can say, what source has done for others, or what universe has done for others, he now or it now does for me and more. Right. And she actually gave a example of a woman who was feeling jealous or envious about another woman who had received a large sum of money. And so then she gave this treatment, what God has done for others, he now does for me, for the woman to say. So anytime that this woman started feeling the emotion of, envy or whatever, she would switch it and say this affirmation. And then, in the book, she says that the woman, received a gift actually bigger than her friend had after transmuting that energy. So I really am a big advocate of affirmations. And when we get a little bit more into like, what we personally think about this, I'll talk more about that. But yeah, you can go on.
Okay,
Jackie,
great. Yeah. Well, let's just again discuss kind of and break down jealousy and envy a little bit, as we will give you guys a little tip or tricks to utilize in your own personal journey. And we want to remember that jealousy happens when we fear that somebody will take what we have. Envy, on the other hand, occurs when we want something that somebody else has. Sounds similar, but they're actually quite distinct. So feeling these emotions is very human. Everybody experiences this at some point. So please stop judging yourself. Stop judging other people. We all experience jealousy and envy. It is probably one of the most common energies that we associate with. But this is kind of where it gets pretty interesting, that if I told you that jealousy and envy are actually signals that point us to our desires, our ambitions, as well as our insecurities. But think about it. We have these feelings of envy of somebody else's success. Isn't this just showing us that we also desire some achievement? I mean, this is where the magic happens. Instead of simmering in these emotions, we can use them as a mirror. And this mirror will reflect our aspirations. So it's important that we kind of break this down a little bit. And I did it kind of in a step-by-step, a 5-step, little layout here for you guys. So the first step is going to be to acknowledge. You have to admit that you are feeling jealous or envious. You're human. It's okay. We are allowed to feel jealous and envious. So then we want to take this to step 2, and we want to reflect. What why are we feeling this way? What is it about the success or the achievement or the accomplishment of the person in the situation that is bothering you? Is it because we don't have it ourselves? Is it because we have been working really hard to achieve it and nothing has come in for us? So really kind of labeling why you're feeling that way. And like I said, we have to start asking ourselves why. Don't just accept that you feel a certain way as the end all be all. We really have to break it down. So it's time in step 3 to discover the underlying goal or desire that these emotions are trying to show us. This is our fuel. This is fuel to our fire. We want, set outcome or set amount of money or whatever it is. So this is our fire. This is our fuel. So now we want to plan it out. How are we going to achieve steps to accomplish the goal that we want? So we want to start by setting our own goals, inspired by this newfound understanding. So really, as we move into step 5, we want to start to take actionable steps towards our goal. And really understanding that the initial emotional trigger is our motivation. So that's our fuel to our fire. And I'll just talk about a little story, my own personal story with envy. And I was at the spiritual retreat, you guys know, and there was this beautiful goddess that I honestly feel like I manifested her there because I needed a practitioner that was a woman. I had some womanly support that I needed, and she was not supposed to be there, but she ended up being there. And that's why I believe I manifested her there, because I needed her to be there. And she had a son, he was 10, and I have a son that's 10, and she is living this life where they have been to like 40 different countries. She's living her dream. She's hosting retreats. She's helping women. And she really does focus on, feminine healing, sexual healing. And that was really something that I needed at the time, and still do, obviously, after everything we talked about. But I found myself so envious of her lifestyle and her ability to just like pick up with her kid's working online for school, and she just gets to live this affluent lifestyle, hosting retreats and all the things that I hope to do in my future. And old Jackie would have been just so jealous, and I literally told her, I'm like, I am so envious of your lifestyle, and I find myself just in awe of your beauty and your compassion and all of the amazing qualities that she has. But instead of allowing myself to feel as if I didn't have something that she had, I just knew that was my fuel to the fire to where I want to see myself, and that I was envious because she lived a lifestyle that I want to embody. And now I have used my 5-step action plan to kind of plan my future, so that end result is Jackie kind of living not her vision of what her life is, but my own vision kind of similarly, but just my own wellness center with my own style of healing, et cetera, et cetera. And it really did just commit and fuel me to kind of take those steps and look at my life in a bigger picture as to how long it would take for me to kind of get there. And I have my 10-year plan, and all of these pieces are shaped through my desire to achieve a lifestyle that I believe that I am deserving of, and that I really just want to see for myself, and it'll make me really happy. So that's my little envy, jealousy story, but it really was this fuel to the fire. And I still continue to talk to her daily. There is nothing negative. She's so beautiful. She's doing such great work. Like, I cannot be anything but supportive of someone like that. And she just fuels me to continue to put my best effort in every single day. And it was because of that situation. And the fact that I caught it right away that, what, these feelings are coming up, and I don't feel like they should be in the negative scale. I feel like now that jealousy that's at that 125 hertz frequency, I reshape that to gratitude and appreciation for her, guiding me and giving me this encouragement to kind of take these next steps into my purpose. And now I've moved that up to like 1,000 hertz frequency, because I'm up there at that top thing. And that's a transmutation of the energy that has reshaped it for me. And I was able to see it as a blessing, and it's not a negative thing. So that's my little rant of my story, but it helps, and it continued to help in other situations after that. I don't notice a lot of jealous energy coming up anymore. I'm really supportive of the successes of the people in my life, and any or any negative or sorry, denser energy that comes up like that, I really do take this 5-step program, sit with it, understand how it is affecting me so that I can make better choices. And that's kind of mine. So I'll give you a sec, Elizabeth, to kind of comment on anything that I said, share one of your own stories that you might be going through or had gone through on this topic.
Excellent, Jackie. And thank you so much. I mean, this podcast, I know that we have both just, been able to be vulnerable and share parts of ourselves that, that at one time maybe we or other people might have, perceived as, darker sides. And I mean, it's so true how, I mean, honestly, once we become aware of these energies and we can feel how they're affecting our bodies, then it's, and I don't want to say easy, but it just becomes, it becomes an easier to be able to shift from, that denser state of, envy or jealousy or any of the denser emotions, and to shift or transmute that into, a way to fuel your own aspirations in life. A couple things came up for me when you were talking. One was, within, like, especially when seeing an individual that maybe is further along in their path than you are, one way in this, I actually, because when I was in academia, I started school as a non-traditional student when I was 27, and I had certain, mentors and professors that I really, really looked up to and wanted to be just like. And so I started emulating, not copying, but really, emulating the way that, like, when I started lecturing myself, the way that I would stand, hold myself, project my voice, use body language. I emulated actually like two main professors that I just thought they were powerhouse women, and I wanted, to be. So that's not a bad thing. So, to be able to change that energy of like, wow, I really want what they have as a negative thing, change it into I'm looking up to them and emulating their styles to help me succeed. And so, that's what kind of came up for me there. And then
I love that. And honestly, it kind
yeah.
of popped into my head that, when I first met you, the way you spoke, and probably the reason I was all like, let's get this podcast on the go, because I was so envious of the conviction in the way you use your words and the way you speak. So when we decided to do this podcast, and I'm working through some of my own insecurities about getting my voice out there, you were really this guiding force for me in that sense, where I really wanted to have the confidence in what I had to say the way that you did. And that's kind of what popped up for me there. And we continue to work with each other nonstop over the last few years. But I've seen such growth in it. And then it really was the same way. And it wasn't coming from any place of dense or negative energy. I was just like, man, I'm like, she gives me shivers when she talks. I need to be giving people shivers when I talk. You know what I mean? So sorry to cut you off there, but I just had to put that out there because that's exactly how I felt listening and working with you and listening to some of your work.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that compliment, Jackie. And yeah, I mean, a background in English rhetoric definitely helps with communication skills. But yeah, but it is a learn. And we've talked a lot about it, and I know you've told me that before, and I'm so thankful that, because I have, just in the last couple of years, that I mean, I've seen growth in, not only your writing, but your speech and everything. So I'm glad, to be of assistance there. But,
I love it. And you're definitely, like, I think it was last week when you were reading and you were talking to us about the Bible and the liquor and stuff. Like, I literally had shivers. I was just like, man, this girl's I was like, it's an energy thing, and I think we're pretty connected to each other. So the passion of when you speak, it's like it radiates through my skin.
Yes, well, definitely words have power, and yeah, so right there, you guys, that is definitely a wonderful example of how you can see someone else's attributes and not have to go into a dense energy, but use that knowing of that energy in you as like, this is what I want. It's not a bad thing. It's not like, because I really believe, and this kind of, goes into my opinions on jealousy, is that, jealousy specifically comes from an energy of lack. Like there isn't enough for everyone. And I believe in this universe that there is, an abundance of everything for everyone. Like, God, universe did not create this world and without the understanding of everything in it is to take care of us. Yeah. And so really, and that's so really going into like that affirmation of God, God is really taking care of everything, and he, she, it, they, we takes care of what is it? What was the exact? So what God has done for others, he now does for me. And so really leaning into that understanding that the universe takes care of its peeps.
Well, and like we're talking about vibration, right? Like attracts like. So if you're sitting in that negative, jealous, envy energy, why isn't this happening to me? Why hasn't anything happened yet? Why is everybody else? That energy is going to create more like-minded energy. So you're going to create more lack, more, you'll notice more situations where people are getting things that you wish you were getting. And it continues to have that ripple effect. So changing that energy within you then can radiate the frequency you want to bring in those more positive, seemingly positive attributes of life. And I think that's the purposes of what we're trying to see and explain, is that there is nothing that is coming into your experience that is not meant for you.
Yes, absolutely.
And once you understand it, you reshape it, and then you start to pull in these higher vibrational qualities. And it does happen fast. Once you have the awareness of it. So understanding, first off, I guess the biggest thing is understanding what you're feeling. And I think you talked about it. I talked about it. That's a big one. That's a huge one. Probably step one is going to take you a very long time, especially if you develop patterns of dissociation. And a lot of us have. I mean, it's not, these aren't similar just to me and Elizabeth. We tend to dissociate from things that scare us or things that are unknown. It's just a common occurrence. So that understanding of the feeling, I think, is so valuable.
It is. And I do believe that is the first step, is just the awareness that you're having that energy come through you. It's just awareness. That is, 100% the first step. And, and really, I love like the idea of taking action around this. I wanted to just give, and this isn't actually about the energy of jealousy and envy, but more the energy of judgment. And that was, so for me and my personal story, I will say that I really haven't dealt that much with the energy of jealousy. The energy of envy for sure has come up, especially with trust fund artists. That was that was kind of a big one to me, because I've always just been, a freak nut and done what I wanted, but didn't have the, financial backing to, I guess, maybe, honestly, though, I was also able to kind of shift that around, because, I have traveled all over the world, and I learned how to thrive even on a shoestring budget, just because I was like, nothing's going to stop me from doing what I want. But there, was an energy of, envying people that did not have to worry about, their finances. And I spent many, 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 many years worrying and doing things that really I wouldn't have done otherwise, just for money, like having job, like certain jobs that I've had and stuff like that. So the envy and really understanding the difference between jealousy and envy was good for me. But and I guess we'll probably do a whole episode on the energy of judgment and self-judgment. But one way, and this kind of goes back to Shen's idea of the affirmation, I love like sing-songy things, kind of help me to get out of my own way, um, and so for me, when I started realizing that I had this energy and I could just shift it to envy. So instead of self-judgment or judgment of others. So anytime I would have this energy that came into me, I would immediately I could rise up, feel it in me, because these energies, for me anyways, would start to make me feel unhappy. Like I would feel like a tightness. I've said, I know in several episodes, that dense energy constricts, lighter energy expands, right? And so when you're feeling, envy, jealousy, self-judgment, judgment of others or whatever, there's for me anyways, there's a kind of a constriction in my gut, right? And so when I would feel that energy, I would automatically switch it. And this is totally cheesy, but the 90s cartoon Ren and Stimpy, that song, Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy. And then I would literally just in my head. So, okay, I'm as an example, I'm getting on an elevator. I see a woman. I want to go into self-judgment. But instead of thinking a negative, funky thought in my head about her that's going to make my gut get tight, I would just start singing in my head, Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy, Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy. And let me tell you, it took probably the awareness and the action, doing something different than sitting and, like you said, stewing in that emotion. It probably took me a good year of that Ren and Stimpy song in my head anytime that I went there. But it was a wonderful way to remind myself, just in a silly kind of fun way, that I didn't have to, sit in that or even entertain denser emotions on any level, because I didn't even want any negative thoughts to come in my head about it. So just for those of you listening, if you find yourself going in there, just pull out a little sing-song rhyme, or do one of the affirmations, or Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy, everything is coming my way the way it needs to unfold, blah,
and it's
blah.
so great because it does then start to create a new subconscious program. Yes. And the repetition of doing that will actually rewire your brain. And if it's a happy song like Elizabeth's, you actually feel the vibe, and you probably have this big smile on your face, and it'll just immediately uplift that energy. So that's a great tip for anybody out there to try who is suffering through, understanding these emotions.
Wonderful. Yes. Anything else, Jackie, before we wrap it up for today?
No, I guess I just want to remind everybody that, these emotions are very challenging at times, but we can all rise up together. There is, as Elizabeth said, so much abundance in this world for everybody. So celebrating our friends' success, celebrating accomplishments made by family members and other people within the community is a great way to keep yourself at a really good vibration. And hopefully you have enough people in your life that do celebrate your successes, but the most important person to celebrate your successes is you. So don't allow small accomplishments to go by without celebrating and giving yourself a pat on the back, because we are our best critic. We have the ability to keep our vibration levels really high and start to transmute any negative or denser energy into a positive in our life. And it's really up to us to take that accountability on ourselves. And I really just wish you guys the best as you are learning to transmute these energies for yourself. But I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today as we discuss the shadow emotions of jealousy and envy. Your comments and your perspectives are so important to us. So please reach out If you have a question for us to explore on our show or any other question concerning our podcast, please reach out to us at sexdrugsandspiritualitypodcast@gmail.com.
And if you would like to contact us about our individual client offerings, please click the link in our description and be sure to mention that you heard about us on Spotify. And we look forward to connecting with our spiritual community at 11:11 p.m. EST every Saturday on Spotify to explore and integrate the shadow side of our reality.
Bye, friends. Love and
Bye.
light.
Love and light.
Sex, Drugs, and Spirituality Podcast. Elizabeth Maria, Unlimited LLC. And Jackie Lyons of Akashic Energy Healing is not responsible nor liable for any advice, course of treatment, diagnosis, or any other information, services, or products that you obtain through this website.